CSIR, and it started at 17:33. And if I take you to over the page to 277, it finished at 18:03. It lasted approximately for half an hour, from 5:30 until 6, correct?
That's correct.
So if I understand the point you make in your affidavit at paragraph 13.3, you say that W206 reflects that witness 2 left Pretoria at 19H43, 1 hour and 40 minutes after the meeting had concluded. You say there was be no reasonable explanation for me to stay in Pretoria for 1 hour and 40 minutes after the meeting. Is that right?
That's correct.
If we go, please, to that annexure at page 114. Red numbers. 114.
The other file, eh?
Yes, I beg your pardon.
Yes.
So the first part of it appears to reflect, if one follows how the timing works in other instances, as explained by witness 2, that he arrived at CSIR at 9:30 in the morning and left at 7:43 p.m. Were you at the CSIR that day?
Yes, I was.
As you have it, though, you would have left at approximately what time?
Probably around 18:15.
And then the second part reflects that you, or he, arrived at Melrose at 8:27 and departed at 8:36. Is that then the sum total of your defense on this issue?
Yeah. What I'm basically indicating is that he makes assumptions that I may have been with him during all of these time periods. But for me, it's quite clear from the minutes of that meeting that and I think that is also the problem that we have with not having the full diary, which is one of the biggest problems, Chair, that we've been facing, because as I've indicated, I'd like to have cross-examined witness 2. And it would have been much clearer. So we are navigating almost at half.
Yeah, there are difficulties.
Yes, yes, because I think it would have been much clearer. So I tried to use the information at hand to indicate that I would not have been with him when he left 1 hour 40 minutes after the meeting. The meeting ended. I don't stick around when the meeting has ended. I leave. So if he had been there, it is possible that he was in a different car and he was not with me.
Would you remember whether you would have gone to that meeting in the car he was driving?
No, I don't remember.
You don't remember?
I don't remember. That's why I'm saying he's showing something from his cell phone that he was there at a particular time. He may have been in the reconnaissance car, arriving there very early, and then leaving later, but it doesn't mean that he was with me. Yeah.
Okay.
But you have accepted that you were at CSIR for the whole day.
I may have been. The minutes that I've indicated to you, they indicate that there was a special meeting that took place at 17:33, and it ended at 18:03.
But Mr. Gama, how can you say with certainty that you wouldn't have, or that you would have left immediately, and that you wouldn't have stayed there for another hour and a half or so?
Because
How can you say that?
Because there would have been nothing for me to stay there for.
So, when you look then at 114, is it your case that do you consider this page here to be a fraud, or are you saying, well, perhaps witness 2 went to these places, but he wasn't going with me?
It may either be a fraud, or he may have gone to those places, but he was not with me.
But would witness 2 have taken you on the 13th of June 2017 to the CSIR in the ordinary course?
When you say in all records?
No, in the ordinary course of events.
Or in the ordinary
Yes.
course, sorry. Okay. Yeah, he could have, but from what I can gather, in terms of this navigation schedule, it's just entirely impossible that at the end of the meeting I would have stuck around on those premises. That is not even our offices. So these are not our offices, so I couldn't have stayed there for an hour and 40 minutes after we finished the meeting.
How many cars would go with you? Would you be in one car, and then there would be another car that, in terms of the protectors?
Yeah, sometimes it would be my car. I'm always in my car.
Yes.
And then there could be...
With one or more of the protectors in your car?
Yes.
Yes.
With
okay.
one protector in my car,
yes.
driving, and then the other one being
yeah.
the one who's on the lookout, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the other one would follow you or be in front of your one?
We would almost always be in front.
Yeah, okay.
Almost
okay.
always be in front or in convoy.
Yes.
They wouldn't...
Yeah.
When I've left, there is no reason to be staying behind.
Yeah.
So I don't understand if he's claiming that he was with me, why at the end of the meeting he stayed behind. I doubt it. That it may be a day when he was off, and maybe he just decided that he was going to travel there because he knew that we were working there, and then continued with whatever else he was doing there. Yes.
The most of that day, to the extent that this reflects that he was there, what is true is that you were also there for most of that day. Is that correct?
Yeah, for a period, yes.
Yeah, for a certain number of hours. You were in the same place.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, you can't remember, or can you, whether you would have driven your car, or whether you would have been in the other one on that day?
I don't think he drove my car, Chair. This is what I'm saying.
Okay.
This is what I'm saying. That I don't think...
On your version, he would be in the other car.
Yes. I don't think he drove my car because it's not in sync with reality. Yeah.
Yes. But in terms of practice and what used to happen, is the position that the two cars, insofar as one of them has got you inside, would be supposed to be together.
That's correct. So if there was a minute apart, that is a normal discrepancy. I wouldn't have a problem with it. But an hour and 40 minutes is just
too much.
Yes.
So, assuming that this is not a situation where he was, okay, let's put it this way, because I think there are facts that both of you agree upon, namely, for a certain number of hours, you were in the same place on that day, okay? And even on your version, he would have been there in his official capacity. He would have been working. He wouldn't be there on his own, on his private, for his private purposes, all right? Now, one would assume, and you must tell me if that assumption is wrong, that he would therefore, because he was at work, he would be expected to be there for as long as work required him to be there, and would leave when work required him to leave, unless he decided to do his own things. And I would imagine maybe you would be aware if he changed and left work at that time. So would you accept or would you not accept that the probabilities are that the whatever time he was there, including the time that you think you would not have been there, is supposed to be connected with work? He's not supposed to have started doing his own things. Is that a fair assumption?
Yes, it's supposed to be connected with work. And Chair, the whole concept of close protection is that you would be very close to the principal, and you don't wander away and do other things. So that's why I was saying, even if he was in his own car, if it was maybe within a minute or two, I would then say, look, we were together. But I don't know from this. And I can say without fear of any contradiction, Chair, that he was not in the same car as me.
Yes, at least that one. He was, on your version, he would have been in the other car.
And also, if he is off, Chair, he may have gone to whatever was being done there. But then stayed behind because he was doing something else. He wouldn't be required.
Yes, would not be required.
To follow me when I left for home.
Yes. Well, I don't know how categorical you may be that you left at a particular time or as soon as the meeting ended, because one knows from experience sometimes, depending on how pressed one is for time, sometimes when meetings finish, sometimes people hang around and talk more and so on, even though maybe sometimes that amount of time might be unusual.
No, it wouldn't have happened, Chair. Let's say one was there from midday, as an example. By the time it's 1800 and you finish with your meetings, there's no reason to. If it was, my offices, I would then say, okay, maybe I went back to the office and did some work. Maybe I had some files, but this situation does not arise.
Okay. Mr. Badc.
Yes, thank you. So if we go back to the affidavit, page 94.
My one.
No, witness 2's affidavit.
Of course, I'm sorry, Mr. Badc. Of course, Mr. Gama. This is all on the assumption that the time stipulated in the minutes is correct for when the meeting ended.
No, absolutely. And our secretaries and minute takers, they were always spot on. In fact, if they say the meeting started 17:33, it may have been late, because maybe it was a 17:30 meeting.
Okay, all right. Mr. Badc.
So do I understand then, if you go to page 95, that what you're saying is you didn't go to Melrose Arch. Page 95. Red numbers?
Right.
It's at the top of the page. Is that what you say?
That's correct.
Did you then later that evening go to this address in Bryanston of a close friend of yours?
I don't know.
Well, let's have a look at what, let's go back to this annexure at 114. In fact, at 115, at the foot of the page, says 22 Elgin Road, Bryanston.
114.
114, the second page of it is 115. It reflects that witness 2 arrived at this Bryanston address at 10:37 p.m. and that he left at 1:57 a.m. Did you go there that evening?
No, it's highly doubtful.
Sorry?
It's highly doubtful, Chair.
Or would there have been any reason for witness 2 to go there without you?
Yes, sometimes if they were driving, even when I'm not there, sometimes they would even be at my home waiting for me. Let's say, I just give an example. If I go to Cape Town and I'm coming back on the same day, they'll drop me at the airport and then they'll go to the office for a few hours, and sometimes they'll go and wash the car and then go to my home, and then an hour before the flight arrives, then they'll come through. Sometimes he'll go to his own home and come back just before the... So there was a lot of carte blanche in terms of what people could do. If somebody said, okay, maybe I needed to go and wait somewhere, they would go and wait. I wouldn't know. The biggest problem with this thing is that there are inconsistencies. He talks, for instance, and I think the main thing he says, no, there was some money that was exchanged. There was money that got given to him. But none of these things happened. It's a fiction.
So Mr. Gama, I just want to understand this, paragraph 24. He says, later that evening I transported Gama to an address in Bryanston. Did he do that or didn't he?
Sorry?
Did witness 2 transport you to an address in Bryanston?
I'm saying it's highly doubtful. It's highly doubtful. Because it doesn't look like he was actually working with me on that particular day. There's nobody who comes on the night shift. You work the whole day, and then you finish. Because if he was working, why did he stay behind in Pretoria when I left?
That is on your version.
Yes.
Yeah, on your version.
Because sometimes if a person is not working, they would still go if the other one says, look, there are going to be a lot of people that we don't know there. Maybe during this time you could be there, and then after that you could leave. So if I left, say, at 18:15 and he stayed behind, it could be that he was not at work.
Mr. Badc.
Mr. Gama, did you have a close friend who resided at 22 Eglin Road, Bryanston?
Yes.
It's not your house.
No.
So what would have caused witness 2 then, literally in the middle of the night, to go to this address at 10:37 and leave at 1:57?
Well, I mean, one of the things that I've indicated that he hasn't testified to, which arose, for instance, is that he was seen at some point trespassing outside of that particular property. So the address could show that the person is there, but is not inside, it's just on the verge. She was caught in the cameras trespassing in that particular area at a point. So you never know, you know, what was his motive in some of these things.
Are you saying there is an incident that you know of?
Yes.
In terms of which he went to this address without you and without your knowledge?
That's correct.
Okay, that's a particular incident. But generally speaking, would the position be that in your absence, he would have no legitimate reason to go there?
That's correct.
As far as you are concerned?
That's correct.
Yes. Okay. Mr.
Thank you.
Badc.
And did you, I might have asked you this, did you on the evening or the night of 13 June go to this residence of your close friend in Bryanston?
I've indicated that this is his Google map. I don't have my own, so this is the problem. If I had the diary, I would be able to say there are certain things in here that are just inconsistent, and I don't understand. It is his Google Maps. That's where he says he was. It doesn't mean that is where I was.
Just on this issue of the diary, because it's the second time you mention it. Would that have been your diary that you are looking for, that you were using at the time?
Yes.
Okay. Is it a diary that would have remained at Transnet when you left, or is it a diary that you would have taken with you but you can't find anymore?
No, it's a diary that remained at Transnet. It's an electronic diary, which would have been quite useful.
Yes.
Because it will tell you the day starts on such and such a time. These are the meetings, and this is what has happened. You will see, Chair, that they've tried to give some kind of a reproduction, which is SG4. But those things are nothing more than...
is that the same bundle?
Yeah, on the same bundle
What
at
page?
250.297.
Oh, I think it's the other bundle. 250.297.
297.
297.
That's correct.
Yes, I see that, yeah.
So if you look at that, it's very difficult to see. I probably can't see
Yeah, it's
with,
very
with
fine
any of
print.
my options of
It's fine
seeing.
print, yeah.
But in there, it would show a person's name, like a meeting requester, somebody who requested a meeting, the people to whom that meeting request was sent to, and then it will have the heading in terms of what was that particular meeting. And that is what assisted in some part to say there was a meeting in Pretoria. There was a board meeting in Pretoria. And then, therefore, one was able to call for the minutes of that particular meeting. But I can't say, for instance, that using that, I can't say, was I there from 9:30, like he was there at 9:30, it says. And even his, if you look at, which I didn't go into, if you look at his,
Affidavit.
his affidavit, the pictures that, is it 114 that we were referring to?
Yeah, I think it was
So if we can go there, Chair.
yeah. Yeah.
It says that before, if you look right at the beginning, it says he was driving for 3 hours, 43 minutes. in the morning. So I don't know where, if you're going to Pretoria from Johannesburg, you drive for 3 hours, 43 minutes. It doesn't say where that trip started. It's one of those anomalies where I'm saying, if you look at this thing, I don't know whether there's any reliance that you can place on this particular thing, page 114 and 115.
Yes.
I think if you, I don't know whether that is miles, it's probably miles, and says 44 miles, if it's miles, for 3 hours, 43 minutes, and then parked from 9:30, which would mean that the person would have left home maybe around 5:30. 5:30. Or maybe around, let's say 6 o'clock. And for 3 hours, 43 minutes, almost 4 hours, you're driving from Midrand to Pretoria. It doesn't make sense. It's all of those things, Chair, which makes one highly suspicious about whether you can place any kind of reliance on this.
Okay, Mr. Badc.
All right. Let's go back to page 95 of Witness 2's affidavit and deal with the second collection, as it's called, on the 13th of July, 2017. And Mr. Gama, perhaps what I'll do is I'll go through the whole part again. I'm mindful of the defense that you raise in your affidavit, and then you can address it. Paragraph 27, the second instance occurred a month later, on 13 July 2017, when Gama instructed me to drive him to the Melrose apartments where Essa stayed. On our arrival, I parked the Range Rover in the parking area at the apartments. Gama went inside to meet with Essa. Approximately, I presume that Anne shouldn't be there, 30 minutes later, Gama, walking with Essa, returned with a plastic bag which he put in the boot of the vehicle. He then instructed me to drive to the residence of a person he knew in Sandhurst. Paragraph 28. While Gama visited such person inside the house, I waited for him in the vehicle. I subsequently decided to check what was inside the plastic bag, which he collected from Essa. When I opened the plastic bag, I noticed it was filled with packets of 200 Rand notes bound with elastic bands. Paragraph 29, I attach here too as Annexure W2-07 a printout of Google Maps travel history on my cell phone as confirmation that I arrived at Melrose Arch at 15:51 and departed at 17:04. The travel history shows that I arrived at 25 Cleveland Road, Sandhurst at 17:26 and departed from there at 19:05. I attach here too as Annexure W2-08 a printout from Google Maps indicating that the Sandhurst residence visited is diagonally opposite 25 Cleveland Road, as I explained. Now those two annexures, the first one you'll find at page 117. You'll see there at the top, it refers to Melrose Arch, 15:51 and 17:04. Then you will see there's a green circle, Consulate General. There you will see, you'll find a time of 17:26 and 19:05. And then if you go over the page.
Sorry, where do you see 17:26?
So you see the green circle.
Yes.
It says, where to from here? Consulate General. Opposite that, you see that time there? 1726?
Oh, okay. Yeah, there is something
And
that says 17.
1905. Yeah.
Well, I'm not
Can you
sure
see it,
if
Chair?
it is 17. There is a 7. There seems to be
1726.
a 6,
26.
2.26.
There's
Maybe it is 17, but it's difficult to tell.
Yeah,
I will,
there's an 8 as well there. Yeah.
Perhaps I can ask the investigators, Chairperson. In fact, I've already asked them. I think
Yes.
what we have here is an improved copy.
Okay, all right.
I must see if they can perhaps improve this page
Yes,
in particular.
yes. Yeah.
Maybe there's a different way that it can be printed, or perhaps printed in a darker or lighter color or something so it can be seen.
Yeah.
And then the Annexure W208 you find at 119. And there you see 25 Cleveland Road, Sandhurst. And then at paragraph 30, he says that witness 2 says Gama later accused me of stealing some of the money from the bag. He even informed my manager and the supervisor of his suspicion. Now this is also something that you address in your affidavit under the heading Add 13 July at page 250.267, paragraph 14. You want to go through that?
250 point.
250.267.
267. Thank you. Yeah. Once again, as I indicated, I deny this version that he was with me. And I have attached minutes of a whole day meeting that I had attended as SG3 at 250.278. The minutes will show, Chair, that I was at that meeting up until 1547. That will be at 250.294.
Is it on page 294 where it shows when you left or when the meeting ended?
When the meeting ended.
Okay. The meeting ended, it was 1547.
That's correct.
Okay.
And then, Chair, if you then go back to 250.297, which is the page at the back.
The one which
Yes, it's always better on the computer. You can make it a little bit bigger. I'm even trying to use my magnifying glass here. On the computer, it will indicate.
I don't think I have any chance of seeing what's written here.
Mr. Maybeck.
Maybe you can tell me what
is in here.
What
I can
is
explain
in it, and then if the Commission's legal team can check on the computer and see that's true, then that can be placed on record to say, although on the hard copy one can't see on the computer, this is what one can see.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So what is in there?
So what is in here, Chair, is an indication that I had a meeting after this meeting, which started at 1600.
It is 4 o'clock.
Yes, at 4 o'clock. It started at 1600 to 1800. So even if he had then said, no, he was with me to go to this Melrose Arch, if the meeting finished at 1547, he was in Melrose Arch already in 1551, 4 minutes later. It's impossible that I could have been with him. So I had another meeting with the chairman of the board of Transnet, with the CFO, Mr. Peter, where we were busy with arrangements in terms of a board pack, taking the chairman, the chairperson through a board pack for an upcoming meeting. I could not, Chair, have been in Melrose Arch and also at the same time be at the Carlton Sand. It's just not possible. So I'm using these to indicate that there's no reliance that can be placed on this testimony of witness 2 on either the Google Maps that he talks about or on what he alleges to have happened during those times. So the team has given us we were given this by the legal team of the commission. They've given us these documents. They will be able to press that, and it will show that there was that meeting between myself, the CFO, and the chairperson of the board.
Well, I mean, perhaps a better way to do it is just to ask Mr. Gama's attorneys to print this out for us in a A5 or something that we can all read, and it can then be attached to his affidavit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that could happen as well.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Gama, you say that on the 13th of July you attended this whole day meeting. If you go to page 278, so this is a meeting that's held at the offices of the TNPA, Transnet National Ports Authority in Parktown. Is that right?
That's correct, yes.
But the minutes, in fact, reflect that you weren't there the whole day. If you go to page 250, 285, it reflects that you came there only at 11:03.
That's correct, and I stayed till the end of the meeting.
Well, how do we know you stayed until the end of the meeting?
No, because I was there.
When you read the minutes, it seemed to me that you came there and you told the people a series of things from your perspective as the GCE. That's captured, isn't it?
Yeah, there's nowhere where it says I left. If I had left the meeting, I had intended to, it was a day when I had intended to be with them the whole day. There was something that took my time early in the morning. I think I joined them an hour later than
2 hours later, Mr. Gama.
than I had intended to, and I stayed with them the whole day. Which is why you will see in the diary, the meeting between me and the chairperson was initially scheduled to start at 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock, and then it was moved to 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock, so that I could be with them. So if I had left, the people would have recorded that I left before the end of the meeting.
Can you, if you go to 285, says the GC, Mr. S. Gama, joined the meeting at 11:03, was welcomed by the chairperson, says the GC drew the committee's attention to the following. There's a whole series of bullet points, takes us to I think, to 287, where it says the meeting was adjourned at 12:30 and restarted at 12:58. Do you see that?
Yeah, that was for lunch.
Was that your input? Is it recorded there in those passages?
I think my input. There are various names of people in terms of who needed to do what.
I think what I'm looking to ask you is, if you have a look above the heading 8.6 at page 287,
Yes.
you'll see that the second last sentence says the GCE stated that meeting should be arranged with PRSA within the next 45 days. You see that?
At page?
Page 287,
Yes.
just above the heading 8.6, it's where it says the meeting was adjourned. 2 lines above that, 3 lines above that, you see there's a sentence that says the GCE stated that meeting should be arranged with PRSA within the next 45 days. You see that?
Yes, I can read that, yes.
Do you see any further reference to you in these minutes after that?
So when I arrived, they gave me an opportunity to speak and address them on a few things, and I think I was giving them feedback on certain pertinent matters. And then after that, we sat and they went through some of their normal issues. And we sat through that afternoon with them. Because I had set aside the whole day to be with them.
I understand your evidence. I'm just asking you, do you see any reference to you having said anything after that?
Well, I don't know whether I needed to say anything. But all I'm saying is that I was at the meeting, and I can relate to everything that is in the minutes because it was discussed in my presence.
So if we go back to witness 2's affidavit, did you, on this day, the 13th of July, did you go to 25 Cleveland Road?
I don't know. I can tell you that he did, but I don't know. I don't even know where 25 Cleveland Road is.
Do you know of anyone who stays at 25 Cleveland Road?
No, I don't.
And he says at paragraph 30 that you later accused him of stealing some of the money from the bag.
It's fiction. It's really fiction. It's a lot of it that we're trying to deal with here. Never accused him of stealing any money. There's no money that he would have stolen. I think he is just putting flavor. You put some raja and some masala in so that your story looks much more colorful and believable.
During the entire time that he was one of your protectors, is there any time, even if it's not in relation to a bank, is there any time when you may have accused him of stealing any money?
Chair, if I had occasion to accuse him, he wouldn't work for me the following day. Because I just wouldn't work with that kind of person if I'd found out that there was something that that had happened. So,
okay.
And I don't know who is this manager of his or supervisor that he says I said that
You
to,
reported it to.
because those are the people who would then But there are many close protection officers. If you've got one that steals, you ask the security department to change them and give you another one.
Okay, Mr. Mayback.
Do you know the address 22 Killarney Road, Hyde Park?
Not offhand, Chair.
And if you have a look at page 117 of, this is the witness 2 annexure, you see that it reflects that he then proceeds to 22 Elgin Road. It appears.
117.
117. Arrives 1931, departs 1936. Was he not dropping you off at this residence of your close friend?
Yeah, he could have, but I don't know this other address.
Sorry?
I'm saying he could have, but I don't know this other address that he says he took me to. I haven't been there.
Is the one that you know the Branston one?
Yes.
Okay, all right. The one that you don't know is 60 Melrose Boulevard.
Yes.
That's the one you say you don't know.
Yeah, I'm saying I couldn't have been there. It says it's African Pride Melrose Ash.
Yeah.
According to this. I'm saying I couldn't have been there and also be with the chairperson of the board at the same time at the Carlton. These are the times that
that he gives.
He was there. So it's quite possible that on his off days he went to a number of places and then he then brings this in here and he says this is evidence that he was with me. He couldn't have been with me when I'm with the chairperson of the board.
So how do you know that you actually attended that meeting with the chairperson of the board?
Because it's on the diary.
Yes, but the diary, does that reflect that you attended it, or does it affect an appointment?
It reflects an appointment. It even shows when it was moved from one time to the next time. You don't have, when you have meetings with the chairperson of the board, you have meetings with the chairperson of the board. They don't change. If that meeting had changed for any reason, as it showed that it moved from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock, it would then go and show that it changed, but it never changed. It remained there.
So, Mr. Gama, can you think of any reason why witness 2, if he wasn't dropping you off at 7:30 on the evening of 13 July 2017, would have gone to 22 Elgin Road for 5 minutes?
I can't think for him. I don't know.
You can't think of any?
No.
Let's then go back to page 96. Under the heading, towards the middle of the page, money found in Gama's vehicles. At paragraph 31, witness 2 says, I can recall 2 instances where I found cash in Gama's vehicles. 32, I do not know where the money came from. Under the heading, money in boot, Mercedes-Benz SL63. During or about August or September 2015, Gama went on an overseas trip. 34, as part of my normal duties, I would attend to the maintenance of Gama's vehicles. In his absence, I went to check on the condition of his vehicles at his residence in Pony Lane in Midrand. When inspecting the Mercedes-Benz SL63, I found stacks of 200 Rand notes in the spare wheel compartment of the vehicle. I estimated the amount to be around 100,000 Rand. You want to comment on that?
Yeah. I think if anybody had found money in a vehicle, they would have come to me and said, I found some money in the vehicle. There was no time when witness 2 ever came to me and said, oh, look, I found some money. I don't think you would see money the way that he kept saying that he sees money. That you would see money and keep quiet, you know. You'd see money and say, hey, I found money here. Maybe you forgot about it or whatever. There was no such. It's all just fiction in his head, where he is trying to create some kind of a story. Because what did he do when he found the money? Did he come to me and say, I found some money, maybe have you misplaced some money, I've got money now?
But Mr. Gama, before we get to that, was there 100,000 rand in the wheel compartment of your vehicle?
No, there was not,
Right.
never, ever.
Did you go overseas in August, September 2015?
I don't know.
All right. Do you stay in Pony Lane in Midrand?
I think he would know where I stayed, yes.
Right. And you were at a point driving an SL63?
Yes.
And would it be unusual for him to check on the condition of your vehicles whilst you were away?
Unless if I asked him, I don't remember asking him to check any condition. I don't think it was necessary for him to check any condition. Why would he travel when I'm not there to go and check on the condition of a car, when my children can start a car and switch it off if it needed to be?
When you were overseas, what did the CPOs that were assigned to you, what would they typically do?
They normally take leave.
And if they don't take leave?
Then they would probably be assigned to someone else to work during that time.
Then witness 2 goes on under the heading Money in Boot of Range Rover. On 20 April, I transported Gama to an official diarised meeting at the offices of Denel in Nelmapius Drive, Irene in Centurion. The meeting was called by the former minister, and in attendance were chief executives of state-owned entities. I can recall that I saw Machila Koko of Eskom, Minister Lynn Brown, and Gianni at the Denel premises. I attach here too as Annexure W2-09, printout of Google Maps travel history on my cell phone as confirmation that I arrived at the Denel offices at 0929 and departed there at 1249. I waited in Gama's Range Rover, he says at 39, in the parking area for the meeting to finish. 38, whilst waiting for Gama, I decided to do a random inspection of the vehicle. Inside the boot, I saw a red medical aid bag and decided to open it. To my surprise, the bag was stacked with 200 Rand notes. I estimated that the bag contained approximately 100,000 Rand. Now that W2-09, you find at page 121. Red numbers.
1, 2, 1.
You'll see there Denel Dynamics towards the middle of the page. Nelmapius Drive, Irene Centurion, arriving at 0929, leaving at 1249. I want to comment then on these 3 paragraphs, 36, 37, and 38.
Yeah, my comments are as follows. There could have been that meeting, but if it was a meeting of state-owned enterprises chief executives with the minister. It was also normally with the minister and the chairpersons of those SOEs. The presence of Gianne is odd because Gianne is not or was not an SOE chief executive. He worked at Transnet, but he was not the head of Transnet. So that on its own, I think for him it gives some kind of a flavor, but he would not have been invited to those meetings. So I don't know if there was such a meeting, why he thinks that Gianne would have been present. Again, 200 rand notes, 100,000. It's like the earlier version. He would always find 200 rand notes, and it's approximately 100,000. And he says he estimated, yet all the time he could have counted it instead of estimating. And then he can tell you it was so much. And if there was such money, why didn't he tell me that you have a windfall here? Here is 100,000 rand. Why would 100,000 rand just be lying around in a car instead of being in the bank? It doesn't make sense, Chair. It's the result of what I believe a person who has been induced and coached to come up with some story. So some of the things that he will come up with are things of real events that took place. So he'll say there was a meeting at Denel. Maybe if you go and check, maybe there was a meeting at Denel. But the people that he says were there, they would not ordinarily be at that meeting. If you ask Minister Brown, did you meet Gianne of Transnet? She will tell you that I don't know who he is, because it was only the chief executives that go there. If Coco was there, it is probably because he was the acting CEO of Eskom at the time. So, and there wouldn't be any other executive from Eskom other than the chairperson of Eskom and the CEO and the minister. So, but here, it just goes to show that as he tries to be flavorful, he then continues to make mistakes because he's trying to create a believable story out of something that was not there.
I see, Mr. Mybeck, that the witness says in paragraph 36, he saw Machila Koko of Eskom. Now at Eskom, you had, I guess, maybe different stages, Machela Koko, and you had, I think, Mr. Colin Machila.
Yes.
So I'm not sure whether he meant Machela Koko or whether he meant Mr. Colin Machila.
Yeah. It's not clear.
So there would need to be clarification.
Yes, DCJ. When you said he was coached, by who do you think that happened?
I have a scenario here, Chair, where somebody resigns from an entity, Transnet, and he leaves in November of 2017. So he writes a letter to his manager and he says, I resign because I don't want to face a disciplinary hearing that I should be facing. He leaves. Okay. I don't know if he told you that he ran away from a disciplinary hearing from his manager. But anyway, he leaves in November 2017. He then comes back, he says, no, I resigned, no, I was dismissed. You don't hear, you don't understand.
It might help if you started by giving the answer to who you think coached him. Then if you need to elaborate, you can take it from there. Because the question was, do you know or do you have somebody that you think coached him?
I wouldn't know the person for sure, but the city press reports that he met with the non-executive chair of Transnet. Why is a close protection officer meeting with the non-executive chair of Transnet? And then in there, it then says the non-executive chair then refers him to Mr. Mohammedi to say, no, you must reinstate this fellow. You reinstate somebody who appeals a dismissal. If there was an appeal, it would have happened within the 60 days after the dismissal. So if he was dismissed, as he claims, because he resigned anyway, I've mentioned that if he was dismissed, it means that by January 2018, he would have filed an appeal. Then we must discover that appeal. And then when that appeal, then there must be a process, the bargaining council or wherever that it goes to, and then it reinstates him. This one meets the non-executive chair of Transnet, gets referred to the acting GCE of Transnet. From there, it goes to the general manager that is dealing with labor issues. And then he is re-employed, which are his words. And then when he's re-employed, it's as if, okay, we have these particular issues. If you can give me a believable story around the person of Mr. Gama, then maybe we can hire you. And then he proceeds to write a lot of this fiction that we see here today.
Of course, you are not saying, but you will tell me if you are saying.
I'm saying it's a scenario.
That is what happened. Or are you saying it is a possibility that something like that might have happened?
That's correct.
It's the latter.
Yes, I'm saying that is a possibility because
Yes.
What I don't understand when I read the newspaper and I see what is happening, and these people have confirmed it according to the newspaper, to say this is what has happened. Mohammed says, this fellow was referred to me by the chairperson of the board. And then I was asked to deal with this matter. I'm then saying, was he reinstated as an inducement? There was something in there in the newspaper that says he's been reinstated because that was long before these statements were made to the commission. It says he's been reinstated because he's been asked to say that Gama has been bribing policemen, money laundering, and something very close to that then happens. So it's not, I'm not painting a story that did not happen. Some of the things that were said there were predicted in that article, and then they happened.
Mr. Badc?
Yes, thank you. How does one explain then all the detail, Mr. Gama?
Sorry?
How does one explain all the detail?
How does one explain the detail? Well, here there is a motive, there is an intent, and person has got time. People who write movies like Steven Spielberg, they sit and they conceive these things. It doesn't mean that everything that we see in the movies ever happened or is the truth. So somebody will have those kinds of things where they sit and they say, okay, this is what we could say. And they try to do a story that is believable. For instance, witness number 2 says to Chairperson that I gave 50,000 rand. That I never said anything. I never said what is the repayment period. He says he assumed that that is his money, that he can take it. It's all fiction, Chair. Who gives you money and never says anything?
As I understand his version, it wasn't a loan. There was enough money and you were just giving him money. There was enough money. There was no problem. 50,000 rand was not a problem.
Yeah, but who gives money doesn't say, and he makes the assumption, okay, no, this is my money. As you say, money is no problem. Let me take it. If indeed such had happened, and then I then said one day, okay, can I have my money back? What was he going to do? Is this somebody who's used to being given money to do things?
Well, as I understand his version, at least the context seems to have made it clear to him that you were just giving him money which he could use as he so fits. That's my understanding of his version. As I say, because there was money, money was not a problem.
So money was not a problem. So you get given money, you ask no questions.
You take the money and
and you go to Wonderland.
Mr. Badc.
See, Mr. Gama, I suppose it's something that we're going to unpack in more detail in time. But you're dealing with this in what might be described as the ordinary course. Evidence is going to be led in this commission shortly that at the Guptas they had a cash dispensing machine. A cash dispensing machine. An ATM machine.
Oh, okay.
You've also heard evidence that Mr. Singh, for example, had 8 safety deposit boxes at Knox Vault. Evidence is going to be heard in this commission that Mr. Peter, his replacement, and your chief financial officer, he had, or his mother had, 7 safe deposit boxes at Knox Vault. Evidence has been led by drivers that cash was stored there. So this isn't an ordinary situation we're dealing with. Because one thing that is
not... So
you
say there was an ATM machine?
Yes.
Okay.
And this commission has heard a raft of evidence about there being lots and lots of cash used by many senior executives. So what it perhaps turns on is how many occasions you went to the Guptas. You say you only went there once.
That's correct.
Let's deal then with having dealt with the red medical aid bag, let's deal with random collections of cash at page 97. I recall occasions where cash amounts were given to Gama at random places. Cash collected at, is that Bulu College?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mybeck. Don't forget what you wanted to say. Let me go back to the issue of witness 2 and his version against your version. Was there a time when you and witness 2 had issues between the two of you while he was one of your drivers or protectors?
Well, Chair, the statement that witness 2 wrote would indicate those issues. That there were issues, yes.
Well, what I'm looking at is I know that he said you accused him of stealing money from the bag, but you said there was no such.
No,
so I'm asking from your own version whether the two of you ever had any issues while he was your driver stroke protector.
Yes, that is correct, Chair, but it was not about money.
It was not about money.
No.
There were some issues, but not about money.
Yes, yes.
Yes, okay. Now, the reason why I'm asking is because you said that he may have been induced with something. It seems to me you suggest at work at Transnet to effectively fabricate stories about you. Did I understand you correctly?
Yes.
Yes. So what I wanted to find out was whether your position is that to the extent that he makes allegations against you which you say are false, you say he's fabricating because he must have been induced to do that against you, or whether he might have some grudge against you as well. There might have been some issues that you say would drive him to falsely implicate you in all kinds of things. So that's what I want to establish, whether it's only the issue of inducement or whether you say there were some issues also between the two of you which you think may have driven him to fabricate stories against you.
Yes, Chair.
Yes. Okay, I see the sun is giving you a problem. The sunlight is giving you a problem.
To just move a little bit.
Okay, but basically you say there are certain issues which you think
yes, there are.
Drove him to fabricate some stories about you.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes, they are.
At some stage, I guess we can hear about them.
Okay.
Well, perhaps we should deal with it now.
Yeah, maybe you
Chairperson, if it's a convenient.
I don't know if something can be done about. I can see you are having a problem with the. Is it the sunlight that?
Yeah, it's just coming from.
Shedding light on your evidence, Mr.
Is that something that can be dealt with or not? Okay, all right. Okay, let's try and continue in the meantime, but they'll attend to it. Okay, so I think Mr. Mybeck says, well, maybe let's hear about those issues that you say may have driven witness to fabricate stories about you.
Yes. Chair, I think witness number 2 is aggrieved. He's aggrieved because he believes that if it were not because of me, he would not have resigned. He claims that I made life unbearable for him, and that cost him to resign from the company. But what we're dealing with here, Chair, is somebody who committed acts of dishonesty. You are dealing with someone, if it was in the army, someone who could have been court-martialed, because if somebody is assigned to protect their principal and goes and does something which is counter to that, it's like when you don't follow the code. When your principal is threatened, you should be the first person who goes to your principal and say, there is a threat and this is what we're going to deal with. This is a person, Chair, who, when the threat came through, did not go to the principal to say there's a threat. It was when I subsequently discovered through camera footage that certain things had happened. I then asked his manager, I said, look, this is what has happened. And I see this fellow doing 1, 2, 3. Can you find out? It was only after that that he then came out and he said to his manager, yes, it did happen. It happened like this and like this and like this. But even in that statement that he wrote, he still lied about it. He still made it as if he volunteered the information when he did not. But also, I would not have seen it if he actually had not committed, if there was no commission of that act. But he committed that act, which is why I was able to then ask his manager. And then it was on that basis that his manager then said, look, your integrity is questionable. It would appear that you did not take the steps that you ought to have taken to protect the principal. And then he moved him from me pending an investigation. And then subsequent to that, you will see it comes through in his statement. Then he then had this grudge that he claims that his life was made miserable because of what he had done, and therefore he had to leave. And I think in his own words, he then says, this was the culmination of somebody that I had worked for very well for many years. But after that incident, Chair, then the dishonesty, the lack of integrity was then covered, and the falsities, the lies that he then made to cover that, even because he'd been given the opportunity to come clean. And all that he was supposed to have done was to be able to come clean and say, this is what happened. But still, even in that statement, he tried to mislead and misrepresent what had actually happened. And as a result of that, I then felt that, look, I cannot have this person. So whatever it is that his manager then did was an inquiry that tried to deal with that issue, because he was saying, as a protection officer, your first duty is to protect your principal. But in terms of what you did, you actually conspired with other people against your principal. So this is the kind of person that we're dealing with. And therefore, yes, he holds a grudge that he was going to be disciplined. Then he decided to resign. although he claims also that he was dismissed. His stories. But what I do know is that I was told that he resigned and left, and that was prior to whatever disciplinary hearing that he was supposed to have had. And therefore, as a result of that, when I then talk about the inducement, is to then say, we can reinstate you, but we want you to tell these kinds of tales. Yeah.
Mr. Badc.
Thank you. Let's carry on at page 97, at paragraph 39 under the heading Random Collections of Cash. I can recall occasions where cash amounts were given to Gama at random places. Cash collected at the Bewley College in Midrand. Sometime during 2016, Gama and I were on our way to his home in Pony Lane in Midrand. On our way, Gama asked me to stop at the entrance to the Bewley College in Midrand, which is not far from his house. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Is there such a college close to your house?
Yes.
Okay. At 41, on our arrival, I presume it should be at the college, I noticed Gianni's Mercedes-Benz GL parked at the entrance. Gianni got out of his car and handed a wine box, which was sealed with sellotape, to Gama. The box was very heavy and did not feel as if it contained bottles. I suspected that the box contained money. You want to comment on that?
Yeah. First and foremost, I mean, there was no such box that I met with Gianni about. And if he says there was a box and it contained money, and then he says it was very heavy, I don't know what is heavy between bottles and pieces of paper, which is money. If he says it was very heavy, I don't think that bottles with wine in them would be lighter. But there was no such thing that happened. What happened in Bellew College, Gianni used to work in Pretoria. There was a reorganization at Transnet. I was able to meet each and every one of the executives face to face. And there was a letter that I needed to hand over to him. And he had asked that after hours, because he was not available, that if I could give him the letter, he will come and meet me on my way home. And that is what happened. I actually gave him that letter. So there wasn't a box that Gianni gave me. There was a letter, an official letter that I gave to Gianni at Bellew College in 2016. I think it would have been around May of 2016 when this reorganization took place.
And you were driven there by witness 2?
Sorry?
You were driven there by witness 2?
Yes, I was going home.
Oh. And Gianni was there in his Mercedes-Benz GL?
I don't know. I don't know the kind of car. I really don't pay attention to these kinds of things.
You have an impressive array of vehicles, Mr. Gama. I would have thought you would have been able to tell us.
No, I think, Mr. Badc, you may be getting it wrong. People will say you have an impressive array of cars. They are old cars. They are 12, 13, 14 years old. So when I have a car, I don't sell cars. I will have my installment sale agreement for 5 years. And then unless I need to buy another car, I keep the car. I even have a 30-year-old car that I've been driving. It's not a flashy lifestyle or anything of that nature. But a GL to me is like an ML. I've not seen Gianna drive a GL, but maybe it does have, I don't know. I thought I've seen him drive a car, maybe a C something. A GL, I think a GL is like an ML, it's this big cars. I don't know. I don't think there is such a thing.
You don't think there's such a thing?
A car that he was driving, but maybe he was, but I've seen him drive a Mercedes, but a private car, a sedan, 4 or 5 seater.
All right, and then under the heading cash collected on the N17 highway near Springs. 42, on a Friday evening sometime in 2017, I went to Gama's residence in Pony Lane, Midrand, where I collected a new Mercedes-Benz S65 from the premises, which he had booked out earlier from a dealership as a test vehicle. You want to comment on that?
No, he did not. He did not go to my residence
You hadn't booked out?
To collect such a car. It's not true.
Had you not booked out?
No.
A new Mercedes-Benz S65 as a test vehicle?
Well, the first thing is they don't give you a new car as a demo. A demo car is a demo. It's not new. But he did not fetch it from home. I asked him to pick it up in Woodmead. So it's not true.
But you had then booked out, let me get the language right, a demo Mercedes-Benz S65.
Yes, I wanted to test drive it.
And you asked him to collect it in Midrand, not from your house?
No, not in Midrand, in Woodmead.
43, from Pony Lane I proceeded...
So where he says he proceeded to Woodmead is where he picked the car.
Okay. So from Pony Lane I proceeded to a shopping centre in Woodmead. You say that's where he picked up the car?
No.
Where I met a close friend of Gama and Gianni's driver in the parking area of the shopping centre. Gama's close friend got into the S65 with me whilst Gianni's driver departed in another direction. Should I finish this whole part and then you comment on it, or would you prefer to comment
I think it's easier if you just
All right.
went through all of it so that we don't...
Okay.
Because it can be tiring and the water is getting finished.
Paragraph 44, from the shopping centre.
You must say when you have run out of water, they'll give you more water.
Yeah.
Are you running out of it?
No, I still have.
Okay.
Paragraph 44, from the shopping centre, Gama's close friend and I proceeded to the N17 highway where, just after the first toll gate towards Springs, I pulled over to the shoulder of the road. At that spot, 2 other vehicles also arrived and parked on the shoulder of the road. The one vehicle was an Audi with witness 1 as the driver and Gama as the passenger. The other vehicle was a Mercedes-Benz GL with Gianni as the driver. 45, Gama got out of the Audi and I got out of the S65. Gama then got into the driver's seat of the S65 where he joined his close friend. Gianni also got out of his vehicle and he walked over to the driver's side of the S65 where he handed a big packet, which I assume contained cash, in my presence to Gama. 46, in the meantime, witness 1 left the scene with the Audi and Gianni left shortly afterwards. 47, also in the meantime, another PCO arrived in a Toyota Corolla with whom I had arranged to pick me up at that location. 48, I wish to state that all the arrangements as described above were on Gama's instructions.
Thank you. So this is a very simple thing where I needed to test drive this vehicle. And I was going to KZN. So we met there. So again, real events, but with flavor. I don't recall Gianni there. I don't know about this Gianni's driver. I'm going to have to maybe try and maybe they should give an affidavit in terms of whether they were there. So there wouldn't have been any big packet that was. So let's assume there was a packet of money that somebody needed to give me. Why would you convoy bring 2-3 cars and then you give the person it doesn't make sense. But there wasn't any of that. There was no packet of money that was being given. He says there were 2 cars that arrived. One was witness 1 and the other one was Gian. I don't recall all of these intricate things that happened, but what I do know is there was no packet of money, or he says he assumed it contained cash. So there was no such. We exchanged cars. I had to travel, and I traveled.
So could you just explain what actually did happen here? So you test drove this S65, and at a point you then got out of it and got into your car. Just let me understand what happened.
No. The test driving was going to take place after he brought the car. He brought the car.
Right.
To where we met. It was next to the toll gate, very close to the toll gate, on the N17. I can't remember. I think it's called Rifles something. He brought the car because I was in a meeting elsewhere. Witness 1, as he calls him, brought me to that place so that I could get onto the car. And then I would have thought that he then got into the car with witness 1 to where his car was, but he says someone else came to pick him up. It wasn't such an intricate thing as it's now being painted. It was really just to say, go and fetch this car, don't come back on the N1 because it's going to be traffic and I want to travel while there's still a bit of light. Witness 1 is going to bring me from the meeting that I was at, and then I can take the car and drive. It wasn't all of these intricate things that the flavor demands that they should be.
All right, and then under the heading breakdown in relationship, I think you've already touched on this. With Gama and dismissal, he says at 49, during August 2017, my relationship with Gama became strained, as I did not get along with Gama's close friend, referred to in paragraph 24 above. The reason being that over time, she more and more insisted that I assist her with private business and to undertake non-work related trips for her. I refused to adhere to her requests, as I felt that she was abusing my services as CPO for Gama for her own selfish cause. Gama did not take kind to my attitude towards his close friend. 50, my relationship with Gama reached a breakpoint in November 2017 when Gama and his close friend accused me of sprinkling muti in and around their house and being involved with witchcraft. Nothing could be further from the truth than this. On 17 November 2017, I resigned from Transnet as I could not tolerate Gama's accusations and attitude towards me any longer. Despite having resigned as stated above, Transnet continued with disciplinary proceedings against me on 6 December 2017 in my absence, and I was summarily dismissed. The charges against me inter alia entailed that I betrayed the trust relationship with Gama and that I sprinkled an unknown substance at Gama's residence, thereby putting his and his family's lives into danger. 53. I subsequently approached Transnet to seek redress due to the fact that I believed that I was treated unfairly, that I was victimized and eventually unfairly dismissed on Gama's instruction. 54. After due consideration, Transnet agreed that I was unfairly dismissed. I was therefore reinstated to the position of CPO with effect from 1 December 2019, retrospective from 1 January 2018. Now, these are things that I think, have touched on already. What other comments do you have?
Chair, probably this is at the nub of why we're having this discussion today. At paragraph 49, there's a whole lot of lies. There was no such that took place, but he's prefacing it in this fashion so that there seems to have been something untoward that had happened. He then says at page 50.
So are you saying that where he says that your close friend used to make demands, in effect, for him to do non-work related tasks or trips for her, and that this then strained the relationship between you and him, that is witness to, you say there's no such thing?
That's correct, Chair.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to be sure what you are saying. Okay, continue.
Yeah. So the paragraph 50, where he says it reached break point. The break point is not in November, Chair, it's in August when it happened.
Of 2017.
That's correct. Where I observed these things on the cameras. I then approached his manager to say, this is what I have observed. Can you find out from him what is it exactly that he was doing? And then he wrote a statement to say this had been given to him by someone that I knew to sprinkle.
Now, is that sprinkling something? Is that what you observed?
Yes, that is what I observed, yes.
Sprinkling something around your house?
Yes, it was a brown powder in terms of the statement that he wrote.
Okay.
That he had been given this brown powder.
Yes.
But he then says, no, he never came with it to the house, that he threw it away in the freeway. But I observe him sprinkling this thing.
On the cameras.
On the cameras.
Yeah.
And then...
Would this have been during the day? Would it have been during the
night?
Evening?
Night.
When he sprinkled it according to what you observed? Or
it was at night.
It was at night?
Yes.
Okay.
I had not been aware that he was there. It's one of these things that I talk about. That.
Oh, so in terms of, as far as you were concerned, you didn't expect him to be.
He wasn't supposed to
in
be
your
there.
house.
Yeah, he came there nicodemously.
He came there?
Nicodemously at night, by cover of night, and hoping that.
Yes. Okay. All right. Continue.
Yes. So then he writes the statement to say who gave it to him. But then in his statement, he then says, no, he was asked to go and sprinkle it, but he never sprinkled it. So I'm saying then, if he never sprinkled, why then did I see it in the cameras? Because I would never have asked him. I would have never have asked for the investigation to say, there's something funny with this fellow. There are these things that are happening. I wouldn't have known if he threw it in the freeway as he claims, because he wrote a statement, Chair, where he says, no, I threw it away on the freeway. But then I see this thing. And it was a vicious thing. You had to have many prayers to deal with that thing.
So he acknowledged that he had been, that the cameras had correctly captured him. He was there at the time. The cameras showed him to have been there, and he just denied. He denied what it was that he was sprinkling, or there was no denial. It was clear, or what was the position?
So this is where the dishonesty is, Chair. So I raise this issue because of what I've observed. He then denies that it happened, that he sprinkled anything. He then says no. He did have something that he was sent to sprinkle.
But did not sprinkle.
In his statement, yeah, he says, but he didn't sprinkle. But if he had not sprinkled it, I would not have seen him. Sprinkled, I would not have asked the question. If he had received it and really thrown away this thing on the freeway, I wasn't with him when he was on the freeway, when he was supposed to have thrown it away. But because he didn't throw it away, he then he gets captured by the camera doing this thing. So he writes about it to say, no, so-and-so gave it to me. And said, this is what I must do. And then he then claims, no, but I didn't do it. Okay. Then why would I ask if he hadn't done it? So that is the other thing. And so I then say to his manager, look, just don't assign him to me, because as you can see, he admits that something like this happened, but he now he creates another flavor of it to say, no, it didn't happen in this way.
Okay. I interrupted you while you were dealing with this. I don't know if you have finished.
Yes, so if I then move to 51, Chair. He says he resigned because he could not tolerate my accusations. The accusation happened once, he admitted to it in his statement. He now talks about an attitude. He was no longer working with me, so I don't know what he talks about. But I think that then becomes the source of... So you now have somebody who has a grudge against you, somebody that used to work with you very closely, that you no longer trust, that now has a grudge against you and has become an enemy because he now thinks that he lost his job because of you. That is really what we are dealing with here. I'm I'm not terribly familiar with all of those issues, but the betrayal of trust and that is actually what it was, and the putting me into danger. Also, because this was a very toxic thing that I really don't understand. But you cross that area, your feet.
Am I right to say you suspected to believe that this was what he did was connected with witchcraft?
Well, I didn't have to suspect. He told me.
Yeah.
It's in his statement, Chair.
Yeah. How did he put it?
I've got it.
You've got his statement?
Yes, Chair.
Okay, so you can make arrangements to share it with the commission?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Then you can read it, Chair.
Yes. Okay, Mr. Badc.
Yes, I'd just like to take you to two last paragraphs, please. Page 100, paragraph 58, under the heading Risk and Security Concerns, says, in exposing Gama's apparent inappropriate conduct in the statement, I believe that my and my family's safety and security may come under threat. It is worthy to note that a few days after my resignation in November, I noticed on 2 consecutive days drones hovering above my house. Although I cannot say with certainty, I believe that Gama may have been behind these incidents in attempts to victimize and intimidate me. I'm further aware that my manager, witness 1, had received threats on his cellular phone to the effect that he should not cooperate with the Zondo Commission in relation to allegations of improper conduct by executives of Transnet, which is of great concern to me. Want to comment on that?
I have no reason to threaten witness 1 or witness 2. I don't know how to procure drones to. I just suspect that his sighting of drones is also a figment of his imagination. I'm not behind any attempts to intimidate him. I don't do that. I pray for him every day, but I don't. I have no reason to hire drones or try to intimidate or threaten him. He knows himself where he is. He knows the truth.
Mr. Badc.
And then finally, paragraph 59. I'm furthermore concerned that, although Gama is no longer with Transnet, he may still have influence over executives and senior managers at Transnet, and that I may be subjected to further victimization by individuals loyal to him. Want to deal with that?
Innuendo, conjecture. There's nothing that I can say to those kinds of things. It's his belief system. I'm not there. There is no such. But I think the issue of whether he would be seen to be trustworthy or loyal towards his principles by other colleagues in the security industry is something that he should himself think about, because where somebody can be creative and make lies about their principles, I think everybody, it's something that he should have thought about before he he starts the inventions and the flavor.
Now, Mr. Gama, I just want to point out something to you. Can you go to page
Perhaps before
94?
you do, Chair,
Sure.
I don't know if it would be, I don't know what time it is, I don't keep a watch, but if we
about 10
could,
to 4.
if we could take a short
Some
break.
short adjournment.
Yes.
No, that's fine. We normally take it at 4, so we may as well take it now.
Okay.
It would be a 10 minutes adjournment. I think, Mr. Maibek, we would start with the next stream. But
Yes.
It's the same stream,
Yes.
but maybe at 5.
I've got,
Yeah,
on this score, I've got literally 2 more questions or 3 more questions to ask Mr. Gama to finish on
On
this.
this one, yes, yes.
Mr. Solomon has just WhatsApped me to find out whether we are on for 4 o'clock. I think the remote link is
Yes.
in the process of being established.
Yes. What I have in mind is that we should go on with Mr. Gama up to 5,
Fair enough.
because the evening session, we always say they must
From
arrive at 4, be
Yes.
ready. If we are done with the day witness, then we start. If not, we start at 5. Okay, all right. We'll adjourn for 10 minutes. We adjourn. Okay, let's continue.
Mr. Gama, I just wanted to take you, if I may, to page 94 of Witness 2's statement, affidavit. From what I can see, Witness 2 only ever uses 3 specific dates. He talks of the collection on the 13th of June, 2017. You see that? Then over
Page
the page
94.
94, red numbering. He speaks of a collection on 13 June 2017. We've been over this. Then over the page, a collection on the 13th of July 2017. And then the third time that he uses a specific date is at paragraph 36. He speaks of you having been at a meeting at Denell on the 20th of April 2017. But we know that's not contentious because you accept that. So the 2 dates, events in relation to the 13th of June and the 13th of July are contentious. But on both occasions, you have, via the information that has been provided to you by the Commission, been able to source minutes of meetings, a special meeting of the Board of Directors and then a meeting of the TNPA, which on your version establishes your defense. Is that correct?
I think that's a legal term, establishes my
Your
defense.
explanation
Your explanation.
Okay.
or your side of the story about whatever allegations
yes.
he makes. Yeah.
Yes.
So if we could then go, please, to your affidavit. And can I take you to paragraph 7 at page 250.264? Paragraph 7, you say, the legal team of the Commission, as the legal team of the Commission is well aware, I entertained the thought of causing witness 2 to be cross-examined, and in this context I requested the Commission to provide me with my diaries spanning the period relevant to the testimony of witness 2. To date, such access has not been provided. Sub 2, any attempt at causing the effective cross-examination of witness 2 is dependent on and will be premised upon demonstrating that I was physically not in attendance and or in the company of witness 2 when certain meetings transpired and cash was conveyed, as he alleges, but rather that I was elsewhere and potentially in the company of other persons. Sub 3, the Commission's legal team's failure to provide access to my diary has prejudiced me and deprives me of my ability to test the evidence of witness 2 through cross-examination. Now, if necessary, we can put up an affidavit dealing with this. But Mr. Gama, you will know, and this has been placed on record before, that what the Commission has provided you with is electronic data that would make up a diary from January 2012 until September 2018. In fact, there were over 14,000 records that were provided to you. We went through this last time. Mr. Benjamin, in fact, delivered this on a flash disk to your attorneys. I would just ask you also to confirm that when you gave evidence on the 11th of March, my investigators actually sat with your attorney and demonstrated how you could recreate your diary with reference to that electronic information. Would you confirm that? On the 11th of March.
Yes, except that it doesn't recreate a diary. And I think I've been at pains to explain to Mr. Maybeck, and I think I explained earlier this morning, that what this does, I think you call it electronic data. I'm looking for a diary. So I don't have a diary. The electronic data gives you 50 to 60% of information that you would ordinarily find in the proper diary. So we have used the information that we have been given to the extent that we can. So it doesn't give us the kind of information that we wanted, and that's why we have sought to resort now to meeting minutes and those kinds of things, just to show and demonstrate that some of these things, when they are alleged to have happened, that I was not even at the places where witness 2 says that I have been. So I know from the interaction between myself and my legal team, and the legal team and the Commission's legal team, that the 14,000 records, as it were, provide electronic data, but they don't provide a diary. So I think it's something which we've gradually had to accept, that that's what it is. It's not the diary as we would know it, because we believe that if it was actually the diary itself, I think it would have been much, much better. For instance, there are these 2 or 3 dates that have been given, but we don't have any of the other dates where you say certain things could have happened.
Mr. Gama,
because that could have been useful.
Only 3 specific dates are given. And your case in respect of 2 of them lies in the minutes which you tracked using the data that was given to you. And you've actually shown the chairperson one of these schedules that none of us can read, and you say, well, that shows me that I was in a meeting with the chairperson of the board.
Yes. Yeah. And I've indicated to you what it shows. It's the meeting requests. So it says so-and-so did a meeting request for these people, for a meeting that could take place in such and such a place. The way that it works, you have to go into that specific date, look for those things. But sometimes it doesn't tell you where the meetings were. The only reason you are able to get the meetings and find out where they were is if there are minutes of meetings that took place. Certain times you can have a meeting somewhere and there are no minutes that were taken because it was not a formal, meeting. So I think that is the issue that
it's
we're
a hard
with.
copy that you are looking for, diary, or
yeah, I'm trying to remember what this thing was called on the diary. It's a Microsoft. Is it Exchange? What is it?
But I take it that it's something that the Commission is not in possession of, whatever it is you are looking for.
They are unable to procure it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've tried.
Has Transnet said they don't have it as well, Mr. Badc? Do you know?
I beg your pardon?
Has Transnet said they don't have it
Yes,
as well?
they have.
Yeah, they have, yeah. So I just wanted to make sure that if there is a complaint against the Commission, it should be addressed. But you say, and Mr. Gama also confirms that he accepts that the Commission doesn't have it. And obviously, if the Commission had it, it probably would have no reason not to give him. So the position is the position, Mr. Gama, that you are simply lamenting the absence of that diary without blaming anybody.
Yes,
about
no,
it.
I do not wish to apportion blame. I know that the team has, all I say is that the Commission's legal team has also failed to find it for me, but I know that they tried.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe it's just the manner and way in which we write it in
Yes.
in
Okay,
English.
all right.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, no, that's fine.
So I'm not saying that it's because of a lack of try.
Yes, okay.
And so I'm saying what we have gives us something.
Yeah, but not everything.
Yeah, but it doesn't give us everything. It gives us 50 to 60% of what
Yes, okay.
would have been useful. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, maybe I may as well mention this, Mr. Gama, now that we're talking about this. To the extent that anybody, witness, whether it's somebody implicated in wrongdoing or not, if they've got concerns, we are quite happy for them to articulate those concerns. And my attitude is that we must look at those concerns and be able to say, we have looked at this, it has got merit, this is what should happen to address it, this, maybe we don't agree, it's got no merit, but if people have got concerns, let them articulate them, and then we look at them and we come back to them and say, this is our response. So that's part of the reason why I wanted to know about this diary even earlier. Okay.
Yeah. I'm not asking the Commission to still continue trying. I think they've tried. So we're just saying, we're just lamenting the fact that what we intended to do.
Yes.
We wanted to cross-examine the witness.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
But Mr. Gama, I'm afraid I don't understand why you can't cross-examine the witness with reference to the minutes of the meeting on the 13th of June and the minutes of the meeting on the 13th of July, just as you've articulated your case here.
I think we could argue this ad infinitum, Chair. I have no intention to keep
You
arguing.
can't take it further.
Yeah.
As I understand it, you, in fact, with reference to the electronic information that the Commission provided you with, you were able to work out that on the 13th of June, you were at the special board meeting, and on the 13th of July, you were at a meeting on with the TNPA. And that then caused you, or your attorneys, to ask the Commission to produce these two sets of minutes, SG 2 and 3, isn't that correct?
Yes, but it might not be, it might not have reflected everything that happened on that particular day. For instance, with what we have, I couldn't be able to tell you why I was delayed for 2 hours to the meeting at the TNPA, but my diary probably would have done that. So this is something, it's a useful tool, but it doesn't achieve completely the objectives for which I wanted the diary for.
Of course, the point of contention there is not your time of arrival at the meeting, it's your time of departure. And you say that can be determined with reference to the minutes.
Yes.
And then just to complete this, so we gave you that demonstration on the 11th of March. Then on the 18th of March, and you've explained how this came about with reference to the information the Commission had given you, Mr. Khan...
Sorry, can you repeat that? Sorry.
On the
18th of March?
On the 11th of March, we gave you a demonstration. On the 18th of March, Mr. Khan requested the Commission to provide you with these two sets of minutes. And, in fact, I'm sorry, that was on the 17th of March. And on the 18th of March, Mr. Benjamin provided them. Do you want to see the email string, or will you take my word for it? There it is.
Register.
Okay, but I don't know where we're going to with this.
It's quite simple, Mr. Gama. The information that you gave, information that you were provided with, you used it to establish that you were in these two meetings. And you asked us to provide you with the minutes. and we provided them to you within 1 day.
And?
You accept that?
Yes.
That answer was yes.
Mr. Gama, I'd like to turn to a different topic. And I would like to...
I'm sorry, the
Yes.
document that has been given to him, must he slot it in somewhere in the bundle, or that?
I don't think it's necessary, DCJ.
Oh, okay.
If the chronology is accepted by Mr. Gama, that
Okay.
on the 17th, a request was made by his attorney for the 2 sets of minutes, and on the 18th of March, the Commission provided his attorney with the 2 sets, and those are the minutes that then are next to his affidavit.
Okay, all right.
Mr. Gama, what I would like to do, because it becomes important for many of the topics that we're going to address in due course, is to look at your role in relation to the 1064 locomotives. And perhaps you could assist us with working out exactly how you fitted in, what role you played from the beginning to the end. Is it my understanding that in all of your interactions in relation to the 1064 locomotives, and they're parts of your affidavit that I'll take you to, you were at all times the chief executive of Transnet Freight Rail?
Yes.
And then, in fact, let me correct myself, right towards the end, you took certain decisions. As I recall, you were at the helm, for example, when the relocation was dealt with, and you were also at the helm when the club loan was secured. Does that accord with your recollection? So that would have been in 2015.
Yes.
So could you just explain to the chairperson from the beginning how this unfolded, the 1064 locomotives, your role in it, your role in the business case, your role in the post-tender negotiations, your role in the increase in the ETC from the beginning to the end? To what extent you were members of subcommittees, etc.?
Okay. Do you have a reference that we can use, like my affidavit, to deal with that issue?
The difficulty with it is that it's dealt with sort of pitted, if you know what I mean, in the sense that, for example, if you look at page 250.133, you talk there about the business case and the handing over of the business case. Is that a convenient place to start, or do you want to start earlier in dealing with the market demand strategy, etc.?
That's fine. I could give you a broad brush, and maybe what could assist the Commission on these matters is an understanding of the decision-making process, and then we can go into. I think there are 3 things that we need to understand about any of these decisions, whether it's the 1064, the 195, any investment decision. The first thing is that there's an investment case that is made, which is a business case for the investment to be made, which is called the investing decision. And that investing decision is normally taken in a context where a number of assumptions must be made. What I've seen a lot here happen is that there then became a marriage between the assumptions and the investing decision in terms of what then happened. And then when people wanted to make certain comparisons, they failed to get out of the post in terms of the investing decision and the investment case, Chair. So, as is the case with the 1064, so there was an investment decision that was made that there are 1064 locomotives that must be purchased. But even that, before you got to it, as Mr. Badc indicates, Transnet had a locomotive fleet plan. There was a market demand strategy which gave the context to it. The market demand strategy said, how do we meet the demands of the market without looking at the constraints that we as Transnet have in terms of how to finance a capital investment program? So I'll come back to that. The second decision is the procurement decision. The procurement decision is when you go out to the market and you start the process to find bidders that can supply you with this equipment. So in this case, we're talking about locomotives. That process is a very separate process from the investment decision. And typically, the procurement decision takes place after the investment decision has been made or simultaneously in terms of long lead procurement processes such as for infrastructure or for locomotives. The procurement decision is then premised on how you call for proposals, how you adjudicate, how you qualify and disqualify, what are the financial, technical, commercial criteria that are measured in order to arrive at an adjudicated decision. And then the third decision is the financing decision. The financing decision talks to how are you going to finance the capital investment program. The program is the whole program. So if you have the MDS, you have the whole program, but there are projects within the program, in the capital program. So there are various projects and they are closely intertwined because for certain of these things, if you do certain things here, you must also do certain things there so that you have a complete picture in terms of what needs to happen. The financing decision talks to whether you are going to finance in-house from your own cash flow, all of the capital, or whether you are going to borrow some of the money. And it also takes into account the period within which you are going to amortize the assets. So for instance, you cannot go and ask for a bank overdraft if you are going to finance an asset that has an asset life cycle of 20 or 30 years. So you then try to match your asset that you are acquiring with the financial instrument that is commensurate with that. There is a delineation in Transnet in terms of who does what. So For me, as a lowly railwayman, who is just trying to, my job in Transnet was to meet customer expectations. Customers want to move a product from point A to point B. What we found was the assets were too old. Locomotives were more than 35 years old. They failed all the time. A trip to Durban, which could ordinarily by train take 12 hours, would take 35 hours. You can't run an economy when producers and consumers cannot, within reason, with reasonable expectation, know what time their cargo will be there, because people are chasing just-in-time principles. Their production, there are factories that need certain raw materials to go into a process in order for them to run. So, as a result, even though railways are cheaper than trucks or road, people ended up transporting vast number of tonnages via the road because of the lack of reliability of the rail. What had triggered this is that there was a serious underinvestment, which had happened over a period of time in the railway. In fact, the last locomotives that had been acquired were around 1972, which was a problem, and that's why you were now having a process and a system where you had locomotives that failed because they were too old. They had gone through midlife refits, and some of the parts that were required were no longer there. Some of these locomotives are no longer even in manufacture, but Transnet was still running them. So what ended up happening is that if you had 20 locomotives running, you would park 2 locomotives, from which you would take some parts to use on the others, because there is nowhere else that you're going to find these parts. They're now obsolete. So that was the situation that we're in. But we're also saying that if we wanted to create a world-class competitive logistics system for our country, reliability is at the top end of the system that you need to create. And in order to be reliable, you need locomotives that have fewer faults per 100,000 ton kilometers as much as possible. Ours were just simply out of the range that you could have your clients to have any form of confidence in the system that you run. As a result, therefore, the railway was just not reliable, and we found that more and more trucks were on the road, and that causes also untold issues. So we, as the people who then had to deal with the clients, we required to have these assets that would give a measure of respectability to the promise that we made to customers. So we, the lowly railway people, were only really interested in acquiring these assets so that we can put them into operations and run them. The group had to fund and finance this. They have treasury operations and finance people who are hired to do this. Then the other thing that we were then doing was to then be involved in the procurement process. The procurement process has got its own procedures manual in terms of how it works. So you're then looking at the interplay of these 3 processes. The investing decision we could not make at our division because what we needed to buy was just simply too large for our delegated authority or anything. So this was probably, I think Transnet had a 300 billion market demand strategy. I can't remember the actual numbers. I think it went to about 350. And these locomotives that we wanted to acquire were estimated at roughly about 40 billion of that, which was about 15 to 18% of the total of Transnet. So Transnet had to look at this very closely. So the investment decision, therefore, also had to take place at board level. In fact, it took place at ministerial level because of the size of it, and there were PFMA issues. So I think that's the context within which these key decisions had to be made. So Transnet Freight Rail worked on the investment case up to a certain point. And then Transnet said, okay, thank you very much. We think we like what you want to achieve, however, it's too big for you, so we'll run with it on your behalf. We would like your input from time to time. So give us some support people that we can liaise with that will deal with these issues. But we will also get external people to assist us because it's just simply too big. So that's what they did. So that was the investment decision until the time when it went to board. From the board, it went to the ministers, and then it was approved. So that was the aspect that we dealt with the TFR. So we came up with the business case up to a particular level when we presented it to what is called the Group Capital Investment Committee. After the Group Capital Investment Committee, then the Group CFO then had to take this and run with it and do all of the different things that had to be done, like the capital assurance, the risk management frameworks, etc., around it, leading to the board, the decisions to hedge, all of those things. Then the second decision that we were involved in as TFR was the procurement. So our chief procurement officer then was given the authority via the board. Also, it had to go to the board first to say, now you can initiate and you can start the process. And then we had to go back to the board and say, these are the committees that we'll put in place in order for us to be able to deal with it. Then TFR also ran with the procurement process. We then have high-value tender teams, which is an audit function and a compliance function that looks at every step of the way as you deal with this and ticks and say, okay, you can go to the next step. We have fulfilled satisfactorily these particular steps. The third one, which is the financing one, which involved how you finance it, that is way over our league. That's what the group function in finance and treasury typically dealt with. Although they would ask us for input in terms of, if we produce so many per year, how much money would you need in that year in order to be able to finance and pay for it? So I think that provides context here. And then we can then go into the actual specifics and the actual specific things. But I think once we've understood that, I think specifically when you do the investment decision, you make all kinds of assumptions from a clean slate or from certain things that you know. You might find that by the time you get to the end of the process, that which you thought you know, you find that you only knew 50 or 60% of it, and then you have to deal with it. So you end up with what is called an estimate of the investment in terms of what it's going to cost you. And then once you do the procurement decision is the one that gives you the actual cost that you are going to deal with. And then the finance people then come in, because I can give you an actual today to say, if we bought all of them today, it's going to cost us so much. We knew that out of the procurement process. But then you need the clever finance people to then say to you, okay, if it's going to be delivered over a 7-year period and you have to borrow money, what does that mean? What is it that we'll have to do? Then they talk about the net present value or the future value of the present cash flows, and it gets complicated. We never really got too involved in it. They would tell us what it was, and we would accept what they tell us, because that is what they do every day. That's their job.
Okay. Mr. Maybe.
Yes. So I just wanted to look then at the first phase, as you call it, the business case or investment decision. Could I just take you to certain parts of your affidavit, please? At page 250.133, and I'm talking now of your third affidavit.
And that is at bundle 7.
Bundle 7, Chairperson. Are you there, Mr.
Yes, I am.
Gama? So just to flesh out what you've been saying about the business case, at 9.3, the 1064 Locomotive business case was developed at TFR, whereafter it was handed over to head office.
Correct.
And then you go on to say, in terms of the development of the business case for the 1064 locomotives, there were probably between 6 and 10 individuals that contributed to the development of the business case. The team was coordinated by Callard, whose main role was to ensure that the business case was coherent and that it integrated various elements of business, financial, commercial, technical, as well as operational capabilities within TFR, with a view to optimizing the fleet. At 9.5, the business case was finalized by TFR sometime in 2012 and then submitted to the Group Finance Division of Transnet SOC Limited, which then appointed McKinsey as well as other transaction advisors that would assist Transnet in the acquisition of the 1064 locomotives. So I just wanted to confirm with you, these transaction advisors, they were not appointed at TFR level, they were appointed at Transnet level after the business case was handed over to them. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Then you say at 9.6, once the business case had been handed over from TFR division to head office, the business case became the responsibility of head office.
Correct.
You say at 9.7, between May 2012 and April 2013, the business case was dealt with by the Group Chief Financial Officer, at the time Anoj Singh, and Mohammadi as the General Manager responsible for capital assurance and integration.
That is correct.
And then you say at 9.8, in the main, Callard and Pillay, together with others from the TFR division, continue to support and assist McKinsey and the Transnet Group in terms of providing professional input concerning technical information that was required. And then if I can take you to 10.1, you say the same thing. The initial business case was prepared by TFR. At 10.2, the business case was submitted to Group Finance. And from the time that it was presented as a business case at the Transnet Capital Investment Committee, Group Finance advised that they were appointing McKinsey to evaluate the business case. And you make the point again at 11.2, the appointment of transaction advisors took place at Group Head Office level. Over the page, you were not, 12.1, party to the appointment of either McKinsey nor regiments.
Correct.
And then I just wanted you to confirm 13.2. I confirm that Singh performed the key oversight role, and I, in my capacity as CEO of TFR, during the period May 2012 to April 2013, provided him with support in the form of human resources from within the TFR division.
Correct.
And the relevance of those dates, May 2012 when the initial business case was presented, and April 2013 when the board confirmed it.
Sorry, where are you now?
The significance of the date, May 2012 to April 2013.
Paragraph
Yes,
13.2.
the significance of that date is that in May 2012 is when we basically took the investment case to the Transnet Capital Investment Committee. And after May 2012, when the group office then accepted the business case, they then said, look, we need to evaluate and assess this business case. It took them then the better part of the next 12 months to do exactly that. And then in April 2013, the board approved the business case. That's the significance of those dates.
And then if I could take you, Mr. Gama, because a lot of this is then repeated, but gathered together, I think quite usefully, at page 169, under the heading Acquisition of the 1064 Diesel and Electric Locomotives.
169.
169, yes. Paragraph 78. You confirm that you were then the Chief Executive Officer during the acquisition phase. You talk about a team from TFR having been responsible. At 78.3 over the page, once the investment case was adopted by CAPIC, its future management was assumed by Mr. Singh, the GCFO of Transnet, who submitted the investment case to the Group Executive Committee. Once approved by the Executive Committee, it was considered by the GCEO, who recommended it to Badc, whose chairperson in turn recommended the investment case to the board. I just want to go through those steps, if I may.
Yes.
So could you just perhaps expand upon those various different levels and the role of the Chief Executive, the role of Badc, and then the role of the board in relation to the business case?
So if we use 78.3 as a pillar, so the Capital Investment Committee is charged with looking at the investment case. The people at Group Finance would then look at it, they assess and evaluate under the leadership of the Group Chief Financial Officer. Once they are satisfied with it, they do many tests, financial and risk framework tests. Once they are satisfied with it, then it moves upstairs to the Group Executive Committee for approval or recommendation. The Group Executive Committee is the highest decision-making body amongst the executives, and is chaired by the Chief Executive Officer. Once the Group Executive Committee has then dealt with it, then the GCE starts to engage the board committees. So in this case, it had to go to the Board Acquisition and Disposals Committee. And once the Board Acquisition Disposal Committee has approved or got it recommended to it, then that chairperson of that committee or that subcommittee of the board will then recommend the investment case to the board itself. And in this case, after the board is approved, it also needed to go to the minister because it exceeded the delegated framework within which the board could approve. I think the board could approve around 4 billion. So anything above the 4 billion needs to go to the minister.
So I just wanted to ask you about this Badc, as we call it, the BADC. That we know is a committee of the board, correct?
That's correct.
And typically, who would sit on the BADC? How many members would it have?
Probably 4 or 5 non-executive board members would sit in there, and then the GCFO and the GCE were ex officio members of that committee.
Of the BADC. So that would have been up until they went, they were seconded to Eskom, would have been Mr. Malefe and Mr. Singh.
Yes.
And how is the chairperson of the BADC appointed? Do you know?
I don't know. Probably by the chairperson of the board. I'm not sure. I've seen in certain instances where I think there were 2 separate processes that get followed in this type of thing. Amongst the non-executives, they will sit and they will say, we have 5 committees in the board, we need a chairperson of each. And then they would decide amongst themselves who is going to chair this one. But I know that 2 committees, which is the HR and Remuneration Committee, even after they've agreed, they have to send that to the minister to approve. So that is the HR and RAMCO, as well as the Audit and Risk Committee. I think those ones, the minister then gives final approval of who will chair that. So the chairperson of the board will then provide the minister to say, these are the people who will be the members and this is the person who will be the chairman. And then in terms of corporate governance, we'll also share a very brief CV of each of the members. But most of the time, because in Transnet, the board members are all appointed by the minister, so the minister would have had some of the CVs of these people before they were appointed.
So, Mr. Gama, just picking up from that, we were at 78.3, and you've explained that to us. And then what you deal with is the evolution of the business case. If I could take you to page 171, you will see about 7 lines down on the right-hand side. On 25 April 2013, 1 year after we handed over the process to the group, the board approved the business case. So it culminated in board approval. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then you go on to say at 78.6, and you've already addressed this, once the business case was approved, the procurement process was initiated. I just want to ask you a few questions about that. From what we've heard, the procurement process, the initiation of it, you have the issuing of RFPs, you have that process in closing, and then you have various stages, the tender evaluation stage, the BAFO stage, best and final offer, and then the PTN, post-tender negotiation phase. And that then ultimately results in the conclusion of what are referred to as LSAs, Locomotive Supply Agreements. Although, is that a correct delineation of the various phases? Tender evaluation, BAFO, and PTN stage.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, who was, you say that Mr. Gianni, TFR, was involved in that procurement process?
Yes, Mr. Gianni was the overseer of the procurement process. Within the procurement process, I think they were close to, I might be wrong, maybe 120 individuals who dealt with this whole thing. And each of these, maybe there were 6 or 7 different committees. Each of them had a chairperson. So there would be a chairperson for the commercial stream. And so they educate, they've got certain things that they're looking for. There is a chairperson for the financial stream. There would be a chairperson for the technical stream. There would be a chairperson for the supplier development stream. There were also triple B, EE, and equity sort of requirements that were required in there. So I don't know if I've done justice to the, I think it's different committees, but then those chairpersons constituted what was called the tender evaluation team. And each of those then reported to Gianni. Alongside that was the high value tender evaluation team, which is the independent team of experts and people that have got audit and compliance skills, and they will look at the procedures manual. They will look at the entire RFP to say what does it say and how do certain things happen. They will look at any deviations that need to be made, and they will make recommendations, and they'll say, okay, this deviation you can make, but go back to whoever is the delegated authority to give you the proper delegation to do it, etc., etc. So in total, I think roughly, let me just say between 60 and maybe 120 different people. I've seen their names in one of the documents that shows the different committees.
Well, I don't know if the number's that important, but I understood in your affidavit you talked about 40 people, but we'll come to that.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Sure. I think they're referred to as cross-functional.
Yes, cross-functional teams, one for finance, commercial, etc. Some were smaller, some were bigger.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, Mr. Gama, perhaps just before we end off for the day, let me just ask you this. Would there then be a time where there would be a short list of bidders, and that preliminary choice or assessment would have to be approved again by the BADC and the board before one entered the post-tender negotiations?
It depends on the delegation that was made at the time that the investment decision is made. So the board will give the GCE a delegation. They will say, we give you delegation to go out on tender, which is the procurement process. If they want the GCE to shortlist, they would also say that. And then they'll say, after you've shortlisted, come back to us for further delegation, share with us who you've shortlisted, etc., and we can then make a decision in terms of what the next steps ought to be. So that is normally the process. Sometimes they will say, GCE, we give you the authority to go out on tender, shortlist, approve a supplier, and come and share with us who the chosen supplier is based on your PPM.
Now, Mr. Gama, I understand that you would not have been involved yourself in the tender evaluation process, but that you were involved in the post-tender negotiations. Is that correct?
Yes, I was chosen or nominated, as it were, to be part of the post-tender negotiations. I had a very fancy title of the co-chair of the negotiating committee. And what it really meant was that if during the negotiations there was anything that the negotiating teams needed clarity on, or if there were deadlocks with suppliers, etc., they could come to me and explain the problem, and I could then sit with them and say, okay, go about it this way, look at it in different ways. As it turned out, I was never approached at any point by the teams to say we've deadlocked somewhere, we need your input or counsel or a certain amount of wisdom. It did not really happen. I think at each stage they came back and said, we are now at this stage, this is what we're doing. It became just more of an information sharing thing. I never found myself having to get stuck in any kind of negotiation.
So who were the other members of the Locomotive Steering Committee?
The Locomotive Steering Committee was chaired by the GCE. I was a member. The GCFO was a member. I think Legal and Compliance was a member. Probably Internal Audit. And I think Gianni was ex officio.
And then what's also surfaced in evidence is a subcommittee of the Locomotive Steering Committee. Do you recall such a body comprising yourself, Mr. Molefe, and Mr. Singh?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a subcommittee, but I think that was the committee. And then some of the people were
all right,
ad hoc members.
And so you deal with your role, perhaps I could just take you so we can finish this off, to page 250.165, paragraph 70.1. You say, I was indeed a member of the Locomotive Steering Committee, whilst Brian Molefe designated me as co-chair of the negotiating committee. I did not participate in any negotiations as alleged or at all, whilst I did in fact offer to assist with any deadlock or disputes that arose during the negotiation process. I was at no stage requested to intervene or to assist. When you talk about, sorry, would you confirm that?
I confirm that.
When you talk about the co-chair, who was the other co-chair?
It was Mr. Singh.
Mr. Singh. And who then, you say you did not become involved in the negotiations, who actually ran and conducted the negotiations?
In the main, Mr. Singh was actually based at the place where the negotiations took place. But I think he would be the one who would indicate whether he was ever approached in terms of the negotiation process. But Gianni oversaw aspects of it. At the negotiation, there were various teams. I know that there was a team that looked after the Transnet engineering subcontract. There were financial teams, but in the main, it was a lot of the same people who were at the adjudication, who were also negotiating.
Chairperson, I see it's just after 5. If this is a convenient time to end the daytime session.
Unfortunately, some of us must go into the evening session. Yes, I think let's adjourn the day session at this stage. I think that in terms of where we are with regard to Mr. Gama's evidence for Friday, we are where we last discussed in chambers. I don't know whether in the meantime there's anything you wish to report back to me that is either yourself or yourself.
The only thing that I can report back to you from my side, Mr. Aldrich will tell you of his position, is that apparently Mr. Molefe is flexible.
Yes. Yes.
As you know, he's scheduled for Thursday night.
Yes.
He's indicated potentially that he's flexible. We haven't taken it any further with him.
Okay, all right. Okay, we leave it on the basis that from your side, sometime on Thursday or the evening session or sometime on Thursday, we can make time for Mr. Gama to continue his evidence, even if it's for the number of hours that his counsel would not be available on Friday morning, and then continue at a certain time on Friday, subject to what they have to say.
Chairperson, I think Mr. Aldrich should address you on that. As I understand that their
Yes.
position remains,
Yeah.
it's either Thursday and no Friday,
Yeah,
or it's Friday.
yeah.
Then, of course, with the difficulty of Mr. Aldrich not being here. But can I let him
No,
address you?
That's fine. Before, he might be able to address us, but I wanted to hear your side,
Yes.
that you have made that offer,
Yes.
or you are able to make that position, that from the legal team side and the commissioner side,
Yes.
once the president's evidence on Thursday is done, we could continue with Mr. Gama's evidence, whether we restrict it to a particular number of hours to make sure we don't lose time that would have been used on Friday morning. From your side, that's available. Then he can indicate what his position is.
Yes, Chairperson.
Okay, all right. Counsel for Mr. Gama, are you able to say anything about that position?
Mr. Chair, I don't want to burden the record with the repetition of what it is that I communicated to you in chambers.
Yes, yes.
Regrettably, my position is that I must commit
Yeah,
from a timing perspective to another firm of attorneys by virtue of the matter that I have in court on Friday. I did communicate to Mr.
yes.
Weiberg
Okay.
that I need to know well in advance. So if it's not a situation of us knowing by perhaps tomorrow afternoon, I have to commit my time elsewhere.
Okay, no, that's fine. I think as far as I am concerned, Friday proceeds as planned, usual starting time. However, we could start later than the usual time to accommodate counsel for Mr. Gama if on Thursday they are available for us to make sure whatever time we would lose on Friday is used on Thursday. But if obviously they are not available to take advantage of Thursday, then the position would remain that Friday remains as was prior to today. Okay, all right.
Thank you, Chairperson.
We will then adjourn for about 10, 15 minutes. Will 10 minutes do, Mr. Myberg?
I think it should, Chairperson.
minutes, yeah.
We just need to establish a remote link to Mr. Solomon.
Yes, okay. Maybe we say 15 minutes just to
Thank
be on
you.
the safe side. We'll adjourn for 15 minutes and then we'll then start with the evening session. We adjourn.
Unmute to me. To me. Unmute. Good afternoon, Mr. Solomons. Camera one. To me. Camera one. Camera one. Give me the chairperson shot, please. Thank you. Camera one. Thank you.
I don't think she's... Hi, hi. Hi, I'm pleased to meet you.
Pleased to meet you.
Hello, how are you?